Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to r/IDontWorkHereLady, where Karens mistake regular customers as employees, and the stories are absolutely wild. And in today's episode, we've got racist Karens, people assaulting minors, Karens causing trouble in foreign countries. It's wild. I hope you enjoy the stories, don't shake your heads too hard, and as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. This happened when I was 10 or 11 years old. I'm now in my late 20s, but I still remember it well enough as it was pretty insane what happened. Also, at the time, I was really tall for my age. My uniform at the time consisted of a light blue polo shirt with the school logo, and black trousers or shorts, which I was wearing. After school one day, my mom took me and my sister, who's 3 years younger than me, to a supermarket where they wore dark blue shirts. We were just browsing around when a man comes up behind me and said, "Excuse me." I turned, and he carries on with, "Where would I happen to find, oh, wait, you don't work here." And the guy walks off. My mom and I laughed, and my sister had no idea what happened. A few aisles over, I hear a familiar voice shouting "excuse me" a couple of times from down the aisle. Somebody then comes hurrying over and grabs a hold of my shoulder and turns me around shouting, "Hey, I was effing calling you. Where the F is the washing?" He then pauses and says, "Oh, for F's sake, it's you again. Now where the heck are those lazy employees who work here?" Now hearing that, my mom was shocked, and I can't remember what she said. The guy paid no attention and walks off to find whatever he wanted. When we got to the checkouts, the guy gets in line behind us. He then makes a loud comment to somebody else, how he thinks people should stop standing around and get to work. I can't remember what the other person said, but it was against what he said. That's when a male employee, I think either a manager or supervisor, heard this and jumped on next to the cashier. We were then about to get served, but the guy barges past me to hand his stuff over for the person to scan, making a comment saying how customers should always be served before the staff, and he won't be long. Well, the manager/supervisor butts in and tells him, right or wrong, none of us work there. This is when the man shouts, "Well, what about him?" and then proceeds to prod me really hard in the chest. He then realizes it's me again. The manager tells him that if he's willing to assault a child just to be served a few seconds faster, then he is no longer welcome in the store. And the fact that he thought I was a member of staff didn't make it much better. Now, I can't remember what happened after this. I tried asking my mom and sister, but they can't remember anything around that time. I remember talks of police, but I don't know exactly what was said. What a character that guy was, right? Like an idiot and a nutso. Not to mention the guy had poor eyesight, manners, and short-term memory. Like how he managed to do that 3 times, I have no frickin' idea, guys. I only wish it ended up with him getting arrested because being banned from the store is not enough. Like if the guy's willing to put hands on somebody that quickly, you can bet it'll happen again. So after years of waiting for this to happen, for the first time in my life, I have an I don't work here situation of my own, and it's a doozy. I'm ex-military, and my husband, whom I met while serving, is still in. The guy's a lifer. On most military bases, there are stores which range in size and type, from small convenience shops/gas stations to large department store style shops called base exchanges. The exchanges are tax-free and offer most merchandise at a discount from regular MSRP. The exchange nearest where we're stationed is huge, and it has makeup counters, brand name clothing and shoes, and sells a lot of really expensive designer stuff at a huge discount. I tend to go in every once per month or so to get my makeup or for things like shoes or work clothes. This afternoon, I decide to pop in on my lunch break to see if they had a particular size of hiking boot for an upcoming camping trip. I was in my business casual work clothes, beige slacks, white blouse, navy blue cardigan, and nude flats, which is fairly similar to the way the floor employees at the store dress. As I was gazing, this very loud and interestingly dressed woman shouts, "Excuse me, ma'am." Now, the ma'am part was extra emphasized, weirdly, so maybe she had been trying to get my attention before and I hadn't noticed. In any case, the tirade she unleashed when I turned around with a smile and said yes was truly insane. I had never seen anything like it before. The woman starts getting loud and proceeded to get louder and louder as she told me that she had been trying to get somebody to unlock the sunglasses case, which is the next department over, for over an hour already. The woman then asked if I thought my time was more important than hers, and steamrolled right over top of every sentence that came out of my mouth when I tried to interrupt her and let her know that I didn't work there. For a few minutes, I just let her scream while I goggled at her crazy outfit. The woman was wearing a very, very bright neon top paired with electric purple leggings. She had very unkempt looking hair and grungy flip-flops. After a few moments, I just assumed that a person with a mental issue had wandered in. So I say, okay, and then turned and started walking away. And this is when the shrieking started. The woman screamed, "Okay, okay?" I can then hear her start moving towards me, and at the time, I saw an employee coming towards us quickly on the left. I turned around to face this crazy woman and stepped back immediately. The nutjob was physically reaching out towards me as she was coming. The woman made a grab for me, and that's when the exchange employee got there and asked, "What's going on over here?" The woman starts ranting again, and I calmly said to the employee, I tried to tell her I don't work here, but she seems pretty crazy. This is when the crazy lady starts screaming about me being rude and threatening to call the military police to have me arrested. I looked at the employee and said, "I'm really sorry you have to deal with this psycho, but I've actually used up most of my lunch break. I need to go." Hearing me say that, the crazy lady starts yelling, "Psycho? How dare you call me that? Don't you let her go. I want to talk to her manager. She needs to be fired. This is discrimination." The employee then called for somebody that sounded like Jared on her walkie-talkie, and then asked me to stay put. I'm sure she was as confused as I was, and wasn't sure if I'd actively done something to the crazy lady or what, so I stayed put. The employee asked crazy lady to please calm down and tell her what happened, and that's when crazy lady quieted down a bit and began to tell the employee loudly that she had just been trying to get my attention to unlock the sunglasses case, and then I ignored her, tried to talk over her, and then walked away. She was telling the employee how terrible my customer service was, and that I probably wasn't helping her because I was racist, and that's when the employee very nicely said, "Ma'am, this woman does not work here." And the crazy lady actually shut up. She looked completely gobsmacked. I said, "I was trying to tell you, but you wouldn't let me say anything. You kept yelling." This is when the woman looks at me and says, "Well, you're still probably racist, so I'm half right." I just tell her, "Okay, I really have to go back to work now," and walked away. A manager caught me as I was leaving and offered me a nice 40% coupon and an apology. I took the coupon, but I told her she didn't owe me an apology. It's not her fault a crazy lady decided to go shopping today. Honestly, I was waiting for that Karen to whip out the good old, "Do you know who my husband is?" line, but that never came. And seriously, that race comment, like how she's half right. Like, are you serious, Karen? Like, do some people literally say anything to try to get the win? I only wish OP responded with, "I'm not racist," for not wanting to help an entitled a-hole. With that said, I would love to know if the lady was banned. I would be very surprised if she wasn't. And if you guys think that was wild, listen to this next post where a Karen gets pretty racist. So here's a little bit of backstory. I'm half black and half white, British. Because of this mix, I'm a lighter skinned individual. I also have long, straight black hair. Mix it all together and I don't look very African or British. I look like I'm from Southern Asia, and I get called Indian or Pakistani a lot, which is fine. I just correct them, and most of the time it's nothing, but not this time. The day this happened, I was hungry, and I decided I wanted Indian food. There was a local Indian takeout place near me, and I wanted to take a walk. So I went there instead of having it delivered like I would usually. It's a small shop, but it was quite busy, so I placed my order and I waited on one of the chairs they had available. After 10 minutes of killing time on my phone, I feel a tap on my shoulder. It's a woman. The woman says to me, "Hey, so what's chicken sag paneer?" I reply, "Oh, I think it's like a spinach and chicken dish in a sweet sauce. I think paneer is a sort of cheese. You should probably ask because I'm not 100% sure." This is when the woman says, "Well, you should know. Now take my order." I just ignored her because I really thought she was joking. But the woman didn't end up getting in line. She's now standing right beside me. The line was still pretty long and they're understaffed, so the few there are working really hard. This is when Karen says, "You know what? You should really go help them. I can't believe you're sitting around. You're a pretty useless employee, don't you think?" Me, not really listening, so I didn't catch what she said, replied with, "What?" Karen says, "I said you should be working. I want my order taken. They could at least hire someone who understands English, for F's sake." This is when I tell her I do not work here. I'm tired at this point, so I chose to neglect the "doesn't speak English" comment. Also, I spoke perfect English before, so it made even less sense. This is when Karen says, "Of course you work here. Why wouldn't you? God, you're lazy. You should be fired. Just take my order." She just starts ranting and then started listing her order. All the while, I repeated I do not work here. At this point, other customers were staring, and this is when one woman thankfully spoke up and told the Karen to back off because I do not work here. Which led to the woman saying, "Of course she does. She's Indian. This is an Indian restaurant. I'm not stupid." I just tell her, "Please, I don't work here. I can't serve you." Karen says, "Don't you lie. You don't want to do your job. I'm gonna speak to your manager." At this point, she's causing a commotion, so an actual employee comes over saying, "Is there a problem?" Karen tells him, "Yes, this useless employee won't do her job." The employee tells her, "I'm sorry, but this person does not work for us. She's a customer like yourself, and I'm going to have to ask you to leave. You're being very racist. You don't have to be Indian to work here, and not everyone who's Indian in here is an employee, so leave." Karen does put up a fight, and she says, "I want my food. You can't kick me out." The employee tells her, "If you don't leave, I'll call the police for harassment." Hearing that, she proceeds to rush out of the door at the mention of police, but not without shouting swears and racial slurs at me. The employee says that he'll try to have her banned from the shop. He also gave me free papadums, so overall, it wasn't the worst day. Guys, thank goodness she left, and what an ignorant, mind-boggling encounter that was. Like, what kind of logic is that, Karen? You're Indian, we're in an Indian restaurant, so you are an employee. Like, I wonder if she does that in all restaurants she goes to. And another thing, I will never understand why people think that somebody on the clock would lie and say they don't work there. Like, it makes no sense. And this person comments, "I will never understand why they think that deeply insulting the people who are making the very food that they're about to eat is a prudent course of action." I'm a fire investigator for insurance companies. A few days ago, I was at a fire at a super common fast food restaurant, helping another investigator process the scene and dig. It's all the fun parts of my job, without any of the responsibility of report writing. It was so cold outside, so I was in my black coveralls and my black Carhartt with a baseball hat and a regular N95 mask because fires and fast food restaurants are gross. I looked in no way like a restaurant employee. Even with the black clothes, you could tell I was covered in soot and debris. And what kind of restaurant employee wears an N95 respirator that's been stained black? I was standing outside in the parking lot with the other investigator that was there, and we were chatting, taking a break from being in the grossness from inside. And here's another thing to mention. The parking lot's been filled with debris. On one end of the parking lot, there's a 9-foot tall pile of random burnt stuff. On the other side, in front of the drive-thru, are all the roof ventilation systems that are half burnt and melted in a big pile. There is also caution tape everywhere, and there's a damn fire engine parked at one entrance of the parking lot with their lights on, blocking the entrance. There was no way to misunderstand what happened at this building. With that aside, a man in an old van drives by with his window down, slowly, staring at us. He has this inquisitive look on his face. The guy drives past the first entrance and then attempts to turn into the entrance blocked by the fire engine. He then backs out, turns around, and then turns back into the other entrance, and the guy's headed right for us. The other investigator wisely caught on to what's about to happen, and he whispered, "Good luck," before leaving me alone with the van guy. Anyways, the van guy drives around this big-ass pile of ash, and he stops right in front of me. He then says, "Hey, what happened here?" I replied, for what feels like the millionth time in my career, there was a fire. He then says, "Oh, what started it?" For the millionth time, I reply, "That's what we're here to figure out." He then says, "Oh, okay, well, do you think I can have a cheeseburger and a medium fry?" Now, I tried very hard not to say what I truly wanted to say, which was some variation of, "Do I look like a fast food worker?" So I tell him, "No, there was a fire, you can't have a cheeseburger." He then proceeds to ask, "Well, can I have a large Coke then?" And I said to him, again, "No, there was a fire, you can't have a Coke." And you know how you can see when someone has a moment where they have a moment and it finally clicks? Well, this guy had that. He then looks at me and very intently asked if I work there. I say, "No, I'm here investigating the fire." He then asked, and I'll never forget it, "So they're closed?" And feeling like I've met the universe's densest star, I replied, "Yes, because there was a fire." The guy finally understood and said, "Oh, okay, well, bye." And with that, he drives away and out of my life. Now, I'm still not sure he truly understood why he couldn't have his food. I just walked back inside, and the guy who left me with the guy out there asked me how it went. Some people just lack common sense. Yeah, I don't even know what to say to that. I really hope that dude was trolling OP or something, or he was high out of his mind, because there was no freaking way that somebody is that dense, right? Like, if the average person pulled up to a McDonald's and there was caution tape everywhere and half the building is burnt down and there was fire trucks everywhere, they're probably going to assume there's not going to be any food. Again, maybe the guy was trolling, or maybe he's just that dense because, you know, there's people out there that lack common sense, like OP said. So just to give a little context, I live in Japan and I'm Japanese born, but I went to university in the States, so I'm fluent in both Japanese and English. A few of my friends were visiting, so I was taking them around and acting as sort of a translator while they were shopping. We were in a pretty big department store, and my friends need help translating some electronics. I had just come from work, so I'm wearing my suit. After a while of helping my friends, 2 female tourists come in with a huge attitude, and one of them says, "Hey, are you just gonna help those girls the entire time? There's other customers here that need help with translation." Now, at this moment, I must have had the biggest smile on my face, as I'd always hoped I'd encounter a situation like this. But I honestly could never have imagined how insane this would be. These two were so entitled and rude, and before I could say that I'm not an employee and don't work there, I get cut off. One Karen says to me, "I need to know if this is tax-free and if it works in America. If I buy this, do I need to pay your tax?" I respond, "I have no idea," because again, Karen then cuts me off again and says, "Well, go effing check." Jesus, I thought Japan was known for good service. At this point, I'm getting pretty pissed off because this woman is not only acting like an a-hole, she's insulting my culture. Meanwhile, my friends are laughing. I again say, "Ask an employee." Karen says, "What the hell do you think we're doing? Are you effing stupid?" And I will be honest, I let my anger get the best of me here, and I say, "Hey, how about you go F yourself?" As expected, this infuriates them, and this is when one of them pushes me and says, "What the F did you say to me?" At this point, I'm pretty sure I was about to get slapped in the face, but a manager comes by. He asked in Japanese what's going on, and I tell him that she starts pushing me for no reason. Karen tells me to translate what he's saying, as if I would, while the manager decides to call the police. So I tell the two that cops are coming because of the situation. And that's when Karen starts laughing and says, "Yeah, maybe then I can finally get some help." In my head, I'm thinking, sure, you speak no Japanese, and most cops here don't speak a word of English, like they're gonna help you. The cops finally arrive, and after some questioning, they come to find out that the two don't have their passport on them, which is a huge mistake. For all those who visit Japan, be sure to have your passport on you at all times, because if you don't have it, cops will escort you back to where it is, or detain you if they can't find it. The two tell the cops, but we're staying in Narita, which is about 2 hours away from where we are. and they tell the cops they have reservations at the so-and-so restaurant in a couple of hours. Cops ask if I want to file a report, and I tell them no, as they throw the two in the back seat of a car and drive them the 2 hours back to their hotel so they can get their passport. I guess you won't be enjoying that restaurant. Talk about frickin' justice, right? Like, how hard is it to be polite, Karen, especially when you're traveling abroad? Because like in this case, nothing like drawing attention to yourself when you don't speak the language at all and have to deal with the police, right? With that said though, the passport thing in Japan I had no idea about. And the fact that the two had to travel 2 hours to get their passports is the instant karma they deserve for being such a-holes. When I was 18 years old, I was shopping around a second-hand store when I found it. A big orange apron with the logo of a popular hardware store on it. I was surprised, as I also saw my name on it, but I do have a fairly common name. The planets were aligned and our fate was obvious, so I bought it and hung it in my closet. Flash forward to when I'm 20 years old, out of my parents' house and living in a frat house while I attend college. Halloween night was right around the corner, but I was planning on staying at home by myself while the others went out. Right around this time, I was trying to scale down my storage as my room was getting a bit cluttered. I was tossing out old birthday cards, childhood toys, and the like when I found it, the old apron. I had completely forgotten that I packed it. I immediately knew that I couldn't let this opportunity go to waste, so I hung it in my closet and waited for Halloween to come around. Halloween night, I toss on a dress shirt and slacks I had for my business classes, and then tie the apron around my waist, and then head out with my brothers, most of them a bit drunk, to go trick-or-treating. It was the first time in years I'd done it, so I was excited. And we were scoring. Big candy, rare candies, and I even got one of those Japanese candy kits. Our frat house was in a fairly wealthy neighborhood by the school. Soon enough, we make our way to Miss A's house. She's a sweet 70-year-old lady, and we all get a big chocolate bar. As we're walking away, Miss A calls me over. I was confused, but in my mind, all I could think was extra candy. But no. She says to me, "I hate to interrupt your night out, but do you think you could fix my sink? It's leaking a bit." Hearing that, I replied with, "Huh?" And then she goes on and says, "Well, you work for the hardware store, right? So I figured you could. Just come inside right now." I let her know, "Oh no, I'm sorry ma'am, this is an apron I found at the second-hand store. You know, like Goodwill." She just replies, "Oh, I'm sorry. I figured since your name was on it that you worked at the store." I tell her, "Nope, that's just a lucky find." She then tells me, "Well, have a great night, dear. Good hunting." I ran back to my frat brothers. One of them was actually working as a plumber to get himself through college, and he was sober, so I convinced him to help her out. She got her sink fixed, and we both got a couple of extra chocolate bars as a thank you. It was a good night. Definitely sounds like a good night. Helping out a neighbor in need, having fun, getting extra candy. That is so stinking sweet and wholesome. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /IDontWorkHereLady. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an r/entitled_people episode, where a smug, entitled office worker pretends to be OP's boss. And little does she know, OP is the owner of the place. It's such a wild story, so go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.